Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 35. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw this week. So let's crack on. First one is SpaceX and StarLink. So this is the currently 1,700 satellites orbiting the Earth. That if you buy a special dish, as you can see on screen, you can point it at the satellites and you can get broadband. So this obviously, if you're in America, this is a pretty big deal, and also the rest of the world. Certain other places like Europe, where pretty much broadband and cable and all those sorts of things are nice and competitive and sorted and cheap. Other places, it's not only not there, but it's also expensive. So if you can point a dish at the sky and get broadband wherever you are, that's a huge thing. So they've actually apparently shipped 100,000 Starlink kits. So that consists of pretty much a dish, a tripod, and a router, essentially. So that's all cool. So if you've not heard of this, that's currently there, as I said, 1,700 satellites being launched going around the Earth. These are pretty low orbit, so these are about 60 times closer than normal satellites for communication, so you can actually have quite good latency, so it's quite quick to get to them. You get about 100 megabits per second, so it's between 50 and 150, so broadly speaking 100, but the game is really aiming at 1 gigabit, so which is super fast broadband for everybody who's got one of these dishes. There will eventually be apparently 30,000 satellites flying around the Earth in very low orbit. So I've reported previously about if you're an astronomer, this is not particularly good news, especially when you've got people like China and the EU and Amazon, for instance, are going to put another sort of 3,500 satellites up there as well for their broadband thing. So this is kind of getting interesting. There are lots of other stories that says it's not particularly good. It's a little bit flaky. It is a beta at the moment, but things like pigeons landing on the dish, and or trees that get in the way, or clouds or rain actually sort of negatively affect how fast your broadband is. So there are some teething problems, but it's still in beta, so that's okay. But this is coming. Roblox, really interesting story. So Roblox has been out for a while. It's a game. It's a bit like Minecraft if you haven't seen it before. But the difference between this and really Minecraft is it incentivizes primarily young people between 9 and 15 to make their own games and sell them within the Roblox ecosystem. These are not games within games, because obviously Apple would not allow that. These are experiences within an app, so that's okay. But basically what happens is if you can actually go on summer camps and all sorts of stuff to learn how to make games. There's a whole coding system beneath it. It's a little bit sort of idiosyncratic, shall we say. However, you can create a game and you put it onto the ecosystem, and it's other people can buy it with their inbuilt cryptocurrency called Robux. So you can earn Robux and you can spend them, all that sort of stuff. Now the problem here, as has been pointed out, there's a really good video basically by People Make Games. Go and watch that, it's really interesting, about okay, you're incentivizing children to make games. You're essentially, that is your labor for this game. They are your content creators, and you go, oh, okay, great. You can actually earn money from these, but you can't really take anything out of the system until you've earned 100,000 Robux, which are nominally worth $1,000 if you try to buy them. But the exchange rate taking them out is only $350. So there's lots of sort of really awkward things here that if this was a grown-up, quote-unquote, revenue share, you'd be expecting to give the creators about 70%, i.e. you would take 30, 25%, something like that. Actually, once you've actually done all the shenanigans and taken off the extras and things, actually, if you are a young person creating games within Roblox, you are probably only going to get 17% at the end of this. So again, how do you get your game to sell more? Well, you have to buy advertising within the system. So it's all a little bit shady. So used to be the golden child, but there's some stories coming out now that you're thinking, hang on a minute, this is all a bit awkward. So really interesting how these big sort of social media platforms or gaming platforms, experience platforms, are monetizing their audience in good or bad ways. And should it really pay a little bit more? NFT craziness story actually goes back to 2017. So Ether Rock has been around for a while. You could basically buy one of these for what, 5 years, something like that, 4 years. Initially, they were something like $300 or zero point 0.1 ether. Eventually, they've now sort of hit the NFT craze. So you're looking at about $1/3 million for each one of these at the moment, and I think rock number 40 currently has a resale value of $3.4 million. So there are only 100 of these ever going to be minted, and I think they've all sold out now. I think Justin Suntron or somebody, I think possibly one of the big sort of crypto owners behind Tron, has bought one. So it's just crazy. These are not even rocks, these are pictures of rocks as you see here. So they're just slightly different in shade, very slightly differently, and they have a different ID number. So if you ask people in the NFT business right now, what's it all about? Pretty much 99% of them will probably say, I still don't quite know. So if this is still complete mumbo to you, then you're not alone. But there you go, another dinner party anecdote about people buying rocks, which was a craze in the 70s, by the way, people buying actual rocks. There you go. Samsung have a thing called Samsung TV Block. Now this is brought to the fore because of the riots or demonstrations in South Africa, and what's basically happened here is, I think it was Jacob Zuma, was the ex-president, and people who basically, there was a court case and in prison and and people came out in demonstration, turned into rioting, turned into looting, and one of the Samsung warehouses got looted. Now obviously all of those Samsung TVs have serial numbers and they are allocated to that warehouse to be sold in South Africa. So what Samsung did, said, like, if any of those then get plugged in, we will know which one it is, and we will block it. We will basically cancel it, and it will be bricked. Nothing will be able to happen with it. So this is kind of interesting. So if you have a stolen or known to be stolen electronic device and you report it to the manufacturer, then in the future that could just be rendered inert. So that would be interesting with cars and motorbikes also, if they could just be turned off. So Teslas, for instance, clearly front of the list for this. So so there you go. If you have a stolen Samsung TV and it doesn't work one day, now you know why. Minus. Now this is sort of a real thing, not real thing. So this was actually created for an exhibition. So this is by Arbite as gallery, and it was actually an exhibition about sort of minimalism and the digital world. And this was really interesting. So this was a social network called Minus, and what you actually do is you only ever get 100 posts. So the point is, as I've sort of written in here, well, what will you make or say when you're freed from infinite demand? If you only had 100 things you could ever say, make them count. And therefore the sort of the drivel and the inane nonsense that goes on most social media platforms would probably cease to exist. You can make as many comments as you like. You can only just submit 100. And if you notice, after people's names, like Ashley Booth or Ben Grosser, for instance, has got 99, that's how many you've got left. So if somebody you see as a zero person, you know that they are essentially commenting from this point on. And if somebody is a 99er, they've made one post. So it's quite interesting how many posts you've actually written give you a certain sort of status. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. So in a land of ubiquity, what does something like Minus give you? That's very interesting. TikTok may be allowing developers to create their own lenses, or whatever they're going to call them, effects or camera effects or AR experiences. Now this is already existing. So for instance, if you on Snapchat, for instance, you can download the Snap Studio and create your own lenses, and you can use them even on your own Zoom calls or whatever it is. However, TikTok have had this all in-house for now, so that actually they've created a website which is not really that easy to find, but it's called Effect House. So you can go to the website and sign up, and it will ask you things like how many lenses or experiences have you created before for other things. So it's only really looking for developers who know what they're doing right now. But as you can see on the right hand side, there's some tools already for developers, but they've not really opened up the lenses or experiences or camera effects just yet, and it looks like they're about to do that. So it'll probably be in alpha/beta for the moment, but that's quite exciting because it gives developers and brands something to develop on a huge platform. This is kind of a weird one. So this is basically, how do you spy on people? There's quite a few of these sorts of attacks, should we call them? You could look at light bulbs, and you could look at even plants, for instance, in a room to infer what people are saying in the room from the vibrations from the objects. So this is another version of that. It turns out that if you have a speaker, or even a USB device or USB hub powering a speaker, as the speaker has more or less volume, then it will actually draw slightly more power or less power, and that causes the LED light on the speaker to either dim or to be brighter. So if it's not doing anything, the LED will be brighter, and if it's actually playing a really loud sound, then the LED will be dimmer because the speaker is taking more of the voltage or the power. So turns out that if you point a camera at the LED, then you can actually turn that flickering of an LED, or very subtle imperceptible changes in the brightness of an LED, back into audio. So therefore, I think it was about 35 or 50 meters away was the experiment that they did. They had a telescope with a camera at the end of it looking at a single LED on a speaker, and they could then reverse engineer the sound from the room just from that flickering LED or pulsing LED. And they showed you how, I mean, it's very garbled at the moment, but it's quite an interesting one for recovering audio from secret meeting rooms you might be having, for instance, or that sort of thing. So if you are having a very private conversation in the future, you might want to close the blinds because somebody might be doing this thing to you. Hopefully that was weird. Hopefully that was interesting. I will speak to you again next week, and speak to you soon.